Let me show you some really great piano roll tricks in Logic so that you can go from a stiff, static and boring part like this into a dynamic, lively performance with lots of variation like this. And all in context that can sound something like this. Alright, so let's get into it. What we have here is some drums, a bass line, and then short strings in 2 tracks. This is the first track, which doesn't have any variation at all, and this is the second track, which I actually recorded live manually with my MIDI keyboard, but I will show you these techniques regardless if you write the notes manually into your piano roll editor. So if we check here on this part, the reason it sounds static and boring and stiff is because every note here is the same length and the same velocity, meaning dynamic layer, as you can see here. That creates a very boring, straight performance. Now, what you can do, and I recommend that you first quantize everything 100%, otherwise this will not work. So the first thing I recommend is to add some variation in the velocity levels. So I recommend that you go up here to Functions, MIDI Transform, and then Random Velocity. And then you choose a range for the randomization. So let's say we want to keep it between 60 and let's say 75 as a baseline. Now if I select and operate, Logic will perform that in the background, and you can see some variation, some different tints of green. If I open up with automation here, set the note velocity, you can see there is some variation now. So all of that creates some more liveliness to the performance. However, you want to add some groove into the rhythm, so some beats you want as accents and core beats. And for this, I recommend, in most cases, you want to keep the 1 of each bar higher in velocity. So if you select any note on the 1 here, and then press Shift P, it will select all the notes on the same subposition. So the 1 in this bar, the 1 in this bar. As you can see, every 1 is now selected, and then you can grab the velocity bar and let's increase it by 25 or so. Something like that. So that is an accent now. Then you can use this technique for, let's say, you have the and between 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, so between 2 and 3. But let's say you want to increase that as well. Select that one, Shift P, but not as much. So let's do like 15 or so this time. 13 perhaps. And then this one here, I have already marked the accents, as you can see in the groove, the main beats here with the bass. But Shift P, and that selects all the 4s, as you can see here. And then let's increase that, let's say almost 20, like so. Something like that. And now you have this. Oh man, so much better than we had before. Not only that, so we have the velocity variation. Now we have the main accents or the main groove accented, so you get this groove in the rhythm. But let's say you want to add some variation in the actual articulation. So all of these, if I select Command A, so if you use articulation switching on this case staccato, you can see it here. Articulation staccato on everything. So select everything and use staccato, and then you can select, let's say, all the ones. Let's do this, Shift P again, and then select shift it to marcato, and then let's see what happens if I just take this and hold down Control while I left click and then Control, just drag it out a bit. So these are now marcatos and slightly longer, so you will have that more of a accent in length, and it makes a huge difference. So And now, once you have done that, this is really, really cool in my opinion. So let's say you add some runs or anything in here as well. By just holding the Option key. I don't know how that will sound, but... Okay, so that sounded really cool. Look what you can do. Select only these and choose run mode, because those will play the run mode while the others play staccato here and then the marcato on other notes. And perhaps you want to increase the length here only on the first one and the last beat to make it really accented. Now, check this out. If I select that note here, remember you could do Shift P to select all of the same sub positions, so all the ones, but you can also Shift D. Look what happens. It selects everyone in here, so it might look the same in this case, but what I'm actually selecting right now are all the notes of the same articulations, all the marcatos. So if I press this note and then Shift D, look what happens. All those notes are selected. So let's say you had a run over here as well. Now you can apply some variation to those. Let's say you want to have those higher velocity on the run there to make it more prominent. Right? Right? That's what I'm talking about. So you can get variation by selecting the articulations, all notes of the same articulation, Shift D. So what you learned here is selecting everything of the same sub position, Shift P. Oh, by the way, MIDI transform, random velocity. You can also, if you want to, after you've done this, because the downside with this sub position thing, Shift P, is that everything has to be 100% quantized. Otherwise, it's not on the same sub position if it's away from the grid. So, after you have done everything, you can also go in and select MIDI transform and then random, where do we have it? So humanize here. So this one you can choose position as well. So velocity, no random on velocity in this case, not length either, but just this position, 10 ticks. And if I now select and operate, everything, if I zoom in very, 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 very much here, you can see this one is slightly after the beat. This is slightly before if you really want to go all in on the variation here. But in this case with, I don't think you have to, because it's already like a rhythmic groove, so you can keep it like that if you want to. I would actually prefer, and this is a bonus tip by the way, with the rhythmic parts like this, if you quantize them, apply some groove. So let's say this bass line here is not quantized perfectly. Let's see. So let's not quantize it perfectly. Let's use slightly off there, 80 or something. And then you can use this as the groove track. If you check here, track components, groove track. So this is actually a hidden gem in Logic. Now that you have activated the groove track in the track header, if you hover your mouse all the way to the left here, you can see star. That will make it so that this bass line is now the master groove that you can apply its liveliness in the performance to any other track. So let's say you apply to the strings right here. Now, even though they are, let's see, even though they are 100% quantized first, when you apply the groove track from the bass, you can see, go in here. Now it's not perfectly on the grid anymore. That's really cool. So that you can use in the end of your composition. Make one of your tracks, the bass line or the drums probably, as the groove track, and then apply its groove, its human aspects in timing to any other tracks. Now choose which video you are going to watch next, or you can check out the amazing bonuses in the video description.